My son Ethan was only 6, small for his age, but sharp like he'd been here before. He had these big brown eyes that always searched my face to understand how to feel, especially when we were at my parents' house. That place, it never felt like home, not for me, and definitely not for him. I hadn't seen them in almost a year, but guilt has a way of creeping up on you. They'd called on his birthday, didn't ask how he was, just said, "If you want us to still be in his life, you better make the effort." My stomach turned, but I caved. I always did. So we packed a small bag and drove 2 hours out to their house. I told myself maybe they'd changed. Maybe being grandparents softened them. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video? We arrived just after noon. My dad opened the door, looked over my head, and then said, "That the boy?" I nodded. Ethan waved politely. Dad turned and walked back inside without a word. My mother appeared moments later, clutching a dish rag. She squinted at Ethan. "You didn't tell us he was getting chubby." I blinked. "Mom." She forced a smile. "Well, come in. Shoes off at the door." Ethan tried to smile back. He had no idea what he'd done wrong. That was the start. They had prepared a small lunch for themselves. When I asked if Ethan could have something, Mom scoffed and said, "You didn't say he needed a separate meal. We don't just keep kid food lying around." I ended up giving him the apple from my bag and half my sandwich from the drive. I thought maybe that would be the low point. I thought it was the worst they could do. I was wrong. Later that day, I went upstairs to take a quick shower, 5 minutes tops. When I came back down, the living room was empty. No voices, no toys, no Ethan. Panic rose in my chest like fire. I searched every room, calling his name. Finally, I opened the basement door and heard a small sniffle. He was in the corner, standing. His tiny back hunched forward, legs stiff. "Ethan?" I rushed down. He turned slowly, red eyes, wet cheeks, but no sobbing, like he'd been taught not to. "I didn't mean to touch the frame, Mommy. I only wanted to see the picture." I turned and saw it, an old family portrait, a frame slightly askew on the wall above the couch. I picked him up. He clung to my neck like a child escaping a nightmare. When I got upstairs, I found them sitting at the table eating pie. I was shaking. Why was he in the basement? Dad didn't even look up. Discipline. Mom wiped her mouth. "He's lucky we let him inside at all. He touched things. He doesn't know his place." I stared at them in disbelief. "He's 6, I yelled. "You don't make a child stand in a corner for 2 hours. Dad stood. "In this house, respect is earned. And your boy? He's just a guest. Start teaching him that before he becomes entitled like you." That moment broke something in me that had been cracking for years. The girl they raised scared, obedient, apologizing for existing, she was gone. I didn't say another word. I carried Ethan out to the car. My hands trembled on the steering wheel, but I didn't cry. Not then. Not when Ethan fell asleep in the back seat. Not even when he whispered, "I'm sorry I was bad." That night, I sat alone in my apartment and stared at the old photos on my phone, birthdays, holidays, forced smiles in a house that never had love. I deleted every single one. Then I looked around my home, sparse, modest, but filled with warmth. And that's when I decided they would feel what it's like to be tolerated, to be unwanted, to have someone look at you and decide you weren't worth comfort. I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to curse. I would give them exactly what they gave me and my son. Silence. And a hunger for something they'd never get back. I didn't answer their calls for days. The first few voicemails from my mom were passive-aggressive, as expected. "You're overreacting again, just like when you were a teenager. No wonder your son's picking up dramatic ways." Then came the guilt-laced ones. "You're really going to deprive your father of his grandson because of a harmless time out?" And finally, the angry ones. "We opened our home to you. You've always been ungrateful. You're raising him soft. Don't come crying when the world chews him up." I didn't respond, not once. And that silence? It drove them mad. But silence wasn't enough. Not after what Ethan went through. So I started observing them, from a distance. I never told them, but I knew their routine. I knew what they loved most, their comfort, their patterns, their superiority. My mom hosted weekly brunches with her little circle of suburban queens. My dad had this recliner, his throne, facing a massive flat screen he bragged about at church like it was his grandchild. So I got to work. I didn't want revenge that was loud. I wanted revenge that was quiet, precise, and left a chill. I started by mailing their own words back to them anonymously, typed quotes from the past. He's lucky we let him inside at all. We don't waste food on visitors. Respect is earned, and he hasn't earned it. Each quote arrived on plain white paper. No return address, no explanation, just their cruelty served cold. After the third letter, Mom called me 5 times in one night. I let it ring. By the 6th time, she sobbed into the voicemail, "Someone is trying to scare us." Good. Next, I visited the mechanic in town, the one they always talked about. They owed him money. Dad had stiffed him on labor. I paid the debt in full under my name. Then I walked into the cafe where Mom liked to gossip every Thursday. She looked up and tried to smile. "Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video." "I heard you've been stressed lately," I said, setting the receipt on her table. "Don't worry. I took care of your debt with Rick." Her face drained of color. "You... what?" I leaned closer. "I take care of what I owe, unlike you." Then I left, calm, silent, no explanation. That same day, I dropped Ethan off school and waited in the car. I was crying now, not from sadness, but from a strange mix of relief and grief. I was finally becoming the kind of mother I needed when I was his age. But there was one more thing to do. I remembered my dad's retirement gift to himself, a monthly subscription to a specialty coffee that came in delicate glass bottles. He'd brag about them like a sommelier. So I canceled it, quietly. When the company called to confirm, I said, "He won't need comfort anymore. Consider the account closed." A week later, they showed up at my door. My mom was shaking. What did we do that was so bad? My dad didn't speak, just stared, like he was finally realizing he didn't have control over me anymore. I let them stand there. Ethan walked to the door, looked up at them with those big eyes, and simply asked, "Are you gonna make me stand again?" Mom gasped. "Why, no, sweetie, Ethan closed the door. I didn't stop him. We walked back to the kitchen and made pancakes. My revenge wasn't loud. It wasn't about pain. It was about showing them what it feels like to be stripped of comfort, to have no power, no softness, nothing to lean on when the world gets heavy. They made a child feel like an outsider in his own bloodline. So, I made sure they knew what it meant to be truly alone. 2 weeks passed. Not a word from them. No letters, no calls, no desperate voicemails this time. But I could feel it, the unraveling. I heard from a neighbor that Mom stopped attending brunches altogether. She didn't want to face her friends after the debt incident. Word had gotten around that she'd been exposed. People started whispering. The facade she'd built of being the graceful matriarch, it cracked. My dad? He couldn't sit in his recliner anymore. Not just because I canceled the coffee, but because I had called the local electronics center, posing as him, and scheduled a free pickup for donation. The TV, the recliner, even the little antique lamp he always insisted made the room. Gone. No theft, no damage, just vanished. They thought it was a mistake. I knew better. They couldn't report it, because who would believe them? That someone had snatched their piece by piece? But that wasn't the final blow. The final blow came quietly, symbolically. I mailed them a package. Inside was a photo of Ethan, smiling wide, standing in front of our new living room setup, modest, secondhand, but cozy. In his hand was a framed drawing he made in school. It said, "My home is where I feel safe." I taped a note beneath it, handwritten. "This is what real comfort looks like. It's not a chair or a screen. It's knowing the people around you see you as human. You made my son feel like trash. You called it discipline. Now you sit in silence and call it peace. I never signed it. A week later, I saw them. Not in person, but on a community Facebook group. Someone had uploaded a photo from the local food drive. There they were, standing awkwardly, holding paper plates. Volunteering, it seemed. But the post read, "Thank you to our new volunteers, Nora and Thomas, who said they're learning what it means to really serve others." I stared at the screen for a long time. It wasn't redemption. I didn't need that. It wasn't even regret. It was discomfort. Exactly what they had dished out to my son. And now, life was slowly returning the taste. I didn't want their apology. I didn't need them to crawl back. I just needed to know they would never sit comfortably again in a world that used to reward them for cruelty. And in that silence, in that twisted stillness, I found peace. Real peace. The kind I never had growing up. The kind my son would never have to live